I came in early Saturday morning to get things set up for the outages and the calls coming in, the reports of trees down, lines down, and so forth. What we were not prepared for was the significant flooding that took place. That was a curveball from Mother Nature. It overtook at least one of our substations downtown. Transformers were underwater, neighborhoods were flooded. So that was something we were not expecting. We were just preparing for, the usual outages from a major storm or a major event like this. It was calm, and we used the term calm before the storm. Everybody was relaxed. I tried to keep them that way until chaos. And then everybody just done their job like they needed to do. And the restoration process continued on for the following week, all the way up until that following Friday. I worked probably 12 to 14, maybe 15 hours each day, all the way up till probably midweek Wednesday. I've been here almost all my life, minus 4 years. And as far back as I can remember, this was the most significant event in my lifetime, and I hope it never happens again.
Well, I came in Saturday to work, and at about 11 o'clock, the rain really started coming down, and Ike asked me if I wanted to go get pizza with him. So we go get pizza, and when we're at Pizza Hut, the lights started flickering, and we thought it was getting pretty serious. And after we loaded down the car with pizza, it was stacked to the ceiling. When we get back, as soon as I step out the car, I had on waterproof boots. They immediately went over my boots. I knew, it was starting to get pretty hairy. And then as soon as I get inside the building, the pizza boxes were soaking wet, soggy, almost about to fall apart. Well, we somehow got them all in. And as soon as I get inside the building, they're like, "Kyle, your car's flooded in the parking lot. We gotta go get it." So I run out there to get that, and I moved it, and then I tried to help, move as many people's cars as I could, because some people, didn't have the proper, attire to be outside. And after that, we just tried to get everybody's vehicle to high ground, and I just try to do what I can to help while I was here. And it just parlayed into basically 26 hours of of work, really. The customer service people were here all night answering phones, and it was getting around 1 or 2 o'clock, and we had to go get cots from the warehouse. But the problem was the parking lot was flooded. Ike and I were in the actual Suburban we had for the surveyors. It was pretty much our truck for the afternoon, and we were going toward the warehouse, and the water was so deep. We got to a point where Ike's like, "Kyle, the headlights went out." I said, "No, the headlights are underwater, man." And so when we finally got there, we were able to load up the cots and make our way back so everybody would have a nice, or semi-comfortable evening. After we got done doing the cots, we were in the EOC, and I got a call from the county, because the county, I guess either the power was out or they ran out of fuel, and they weren't able to get any fuel to their EMS vehicles, so they needed fuel. And we have, different chip systems from the county, so somebody had to be at the fuel island to man it. So I basically, for about 8 hours, I was out at the fuel island waiting for the ambulance to come in, and just basically waiting on a phone call, just doing what I could. Okay, I'm not your typical guy that lineman that is out in this mess anyway. I sit behind a desk all day. I send emails. That's pretty much my main proponent of my job. But when the hurricane struck, everybody had to come together and be hands-on. And there was a couple people in our department that stayed the whole night just like I did, so I can't take any credit. And I was just here to help, and I'm glad we did. So
I came into work about 7:30 and came over to the EOC in our building, stayed till noon or so. I was supposed to come back that night at 7 o'clock, so I went on home to get a little bit of rest. When I got home, the rain started coming down a little bit harder, and I just decided, I need to go back to work. So maybe about 3 o'clock, I headed back to work, and I could not get to work at all. So all the roads were flooded. Robeson Street was flooded. 301 out here was flooded. So I turned around and I was going to try to come down Gillespie Street. Well, I was coming down Gillespie Street and I noticed that water was running over the street. So I just stopped my truck and parked at the little V where where Gillespie Street is, and I just left my personal vehicle there, got out and stood under the stoplight and spun people around. Had water up above my ankles, but it was a good thing because the road washed out and no one knew. People were just driving; they would just drive right on through there. In fact, I had to holler a couple of times to get people to pay attention and stop, because they would have ended up in a ditch or worse, washed off the road. So for 3.5 hours or so, I turned people around. The police could not get over there. They were basically on the other side of the river, or not river, but where the road washed out. They were on the other side. No one could get out to me. So I did call a couple PWC crews. I called Gary Faircloth and Ross Johnson and had them take one of our large trucks to the other side and block the road off so that nobody could come from that direction towards me. And then Mike Molina was at the EOC and he was trying to get police out there, but all the roads had just flooded, so no one could get to me. Up until now, I never would have imagined that flooding would be that bad, but when you're watching the water literally rise around you, it is a very scary feeling. And I was very cold. I did not think that, I never really thought about hypothermia before, but by the time I left, I was literally shivering. But the rain had stopped then also, so I went home and changed clothes, and then I went to the EOC downtown and worked till 7 or 8 o'clock the next morning. If PWC customers had questions, I would answer questions about water or when their power may be restored, what they might need to do, that type of stuff. And then we would assist with the rescue crews. For like the fire department, they would be sitting on down power lines, and they'd call us and say, hey, we have a crew out here that's sitting on the down power line. Can you get one of your people to go sit on it for us? So I would send over some of my field techs, and they would relieve the fire department so the fire department could respond to other emergencies. It's nice seeing the community come together and support rescue efforts. The night I was there, I got to hear about all the boat rescues, and they were one after the other. It was just nice seeing all that come together and everybody step up.
You forget how powerful water is. When I watched a car try to go over one of our lower bridges and start to move sideways, which fortunately they kicked it into reverse and their car managed to they were able to get themselves out, but they were pretty much hugging the railing at that time. And I'm really glad that I saw that they were able to get back out. But I mean, I saw a handful of spots where cars were all I saw was the roof in the water at these crossings. So anytime there's water that you don't know how deep it is, don't cross it. It's just not worth it. During a storm like this where the ground is fully saturated, those trees start toppling over. I think that's what we saw. Most of the damage was from trees landing on our lines, on our poles, on people's houses. Unfortunately, there's a handful of spots we saw where there were just near misses. We saw a handful of spots where they clipped a house or actually had hit a house. But most of the stuff that we were fixing was a tree that just landed straight on one of the poles and took it completely out. And so we worked at basically cutting up the tree, getting the pole back in the ground, getting the wires back in the air, getting everything connected safely, and seeing if we could turn on as many customers as possible. So we start with the biggest number of people out and then work our way towards the individual connections as best we can.
During Hurricane Matthew, I served as a PWC liaison with the county EOC, taking calls from the county 911 if there was any emergency issues with power line outages or power line downs, power outages, serving beside the Fayetteville City police officers, Fayetteville Fire Department, EMS, Red Cross, and other government agencies among that nature. The day of the storm, I worked 19 hours straight in the county EOC. I was unable to get home due to flooding downtown, so I had to come to the office. I slept in my office for about 2.5 hours to wake up to go back to the EOC for another 10 to 12 hour shift before I can actually get home. My wife and my kids were at home. They were without power, without water for a couple days, but it was hard to leave them at home because I wasn't sure what was gonna happen, what type of damage was gonna happen at the house, if we were to have any damage, any flooding. 'Cause like I said, I was in a basement. I couldn't see outside, couldn't see how bad it was raining, couldn't see how bad the flooding was. I was getting reports on how bad it was, all the reports coming into the county of all the emergency rescues, the boat rescues, so I was concerned. The reports of people going underwater and, you know, the emergency response units, FEMA came, they were there, the urban search and rescue from New York, New Jersey, Ohio, they were there, so that was eye-opening. They were out there with their boats rescuing people as well, so. We were well prepared for the storm. We planned the week leading up to the storm, so there was no surprises. Everybody was on schedule. We had schedules made out for the first 3 days of the storm, so we were well prepared to handle any emergency situation here. Teamwork was awesome.